Welcome into the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. I am your host, Richard Johnson. I'm joined by my guys, Brad, Crawford, and Emory Hunt. We are locked and loaded to break down all the gambling action for this weekend in college football. Fellas, let's dive right into it. Let's get going. Texas Tech and Houston, an interesting, sneaky Big 12 matchup with the Red Raiders minus 10.5. They've been absolutely rolling, but at quarterback, during their bye week, Behren Morton got healthy. He's expected to play. Will Hammond finished out the game against Utah, played pretty well, quite frankly. Joey McGuire even said earlier this week that he's got a multi-year contract. It's a long-term deal with Will Hammond. But Brad, Behren Morton is back. This offense is rolling. How do you expect that to help Texas Tech this weekend?
Yeah, the good news is the Big 12 favorite right now, Richard, has immense depth at the most important position on the field. You see right there, most points per game in college football, Texas Tech number two. This strengthens the Red Raiders as the Big 12 frontrunner, and it gives Joey McGuire security, knowing that if something happens to Behren Morton, the starter again, maybe because of a right tackle issue or a left tackle missing a block, if Morton struggles even, then Will Hammond can come in and save the day. There's a reason that they're a 10.5 point, now 11.5 point favorite this weekend. Texas Tech, I think right now through week 5, heading into Saturday, is the clear front runner in that conference.
Well, Emory's
Yeah.
dancing with the girl who brought him, which is Texas Tech. He said every week he's rolling with the Red Raiders.
And this one wasn't even about the quarterback position, to be honest, guys, because we saw Hammond come in there, play really well. But this Texas Tech defense is the true story in this particular game against Houston, man. And having that confidence, you have two guys at QB that can go in and keep the offense on pace. And we say on pace, and on pace is like 50 plus points a game. But this defense is what it was built to be coming into the season. And I like that it's playing out, is coming to fruition out there on the field. Bailey is doing a great job as a defensive end, and I think that is going to be the biggest matchup the Houston Cougars are going to have to overcome in this ball game. And it's going to be tough for them, man. This is a well-balanced, explosive team down there in Lubbock.
Texas Tech has outscored its opponents by 24 plus points per game in each of their games this season. The Red Raiders are absolutely rolling. Brad, what does it say about the way Texas Tech was able to evaluate and get talent that, as Emory was saying, David Bailey's playing well, Lee Hunter at defensive tackles playing really well, Romello Height on the other edge as a bookends playing really well. The pieces that they added, particularly in the trenches, are giving them what we expected them to give.
Yeah, Texas Tech had a top two transfer portal class this 2025 cycle. The only team above the Red Raiders, LSU. And we see now that's a team that's teetering because of some missed evaluations and that sort of thing up front. Joey McGuire and Texas Tech, all the boosters there, everyone associated in Lubbock with the Red Raiders went all in this offseason to make it to the college football playoff this fall. And through week 5, they have a team that's capable of that, looks the part, and really is the only Big 12 team right now with two justifiable starters at the quarterback position. I know Morton's starting this weekend, but you can ask Joey. I mean, off the record or on the record, he'll tell you we feel comfortable with both of those guys taking snaps.
Don't sleep on Houston now, by the way. Houston's really good up front as well. I am interested, Emory, in how the Cougars hold up in this game.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to have to win. I will say this about Texas Tech. We hadn't seen the Texas Tech point of attack like this since Spike Dykes was back there coaching with Bam Morris at running back and those Zach Thomas linebacker defenses that was being led by them in the Southwest Conference. This is how good Texas Tech has been at the point of attack, because usually we're talking about one of these teams that's scoring a bunch of points, but on the other side, they're giving up a bunch of points. That's not the case. So not only do I feel like this team can go and win these big games like this one is against Houston, who, like you said, is playing really well and found a way to beat Oregon State, even though they didn't play their best game. This is a team that can get to the playoffs and win multiple games in the postseason. They have the look of a focus squad. They have depth. They have talent. And you have to tip your cap to these coaches showing that, hey, it's not just about acquiring talent, but developing talent and putting talent in the right position to win ball games. So often we see around college football, around pro football, even around high school football, where guys have talented players but are not putting them in position to have success. Texas Tech is doing it the right way on all fronts.
Spike Dykes reference. Talk to him, Emory. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Iowa State loses its top two corners, Jontez Williams and Jeremiah Cooper, for the season. They play Cincinnati tight close one here. -1 is the spread here. Williams tore his ACL in a game last week. He's an all-conference player coming back. Last year, Jeremiah Cooper tore his ACL. Jeremiah Cooper tore his ACL last week in practice, and Jontez Williams tore his ACL in the game that they played last Saturday. Cincinnati's Dante Corleone for the Bearcats on defense. Their tremendous defensive tackle, trending towards looking like he might go. He's listed as questionable on the latest Big 12 availability report. Our Matt Zenitz says it's looking like he could go in this game. So we'll see. It's a big early measuring stick for Iowa State that needs to continue to push for the second place kind of in the Big 12 as we look forward projecting the Big 12 race. They got to get this game, but it's going to be a tough one, Brad, for Iowa State to get over the hump here.
Yeah, these injuries are a problem for Matt Campbell in Iowa State, especially with the way Brendan Sorsby is throwing the football right now for Cincinnati. It's also one of those spots, Richard and Emory, I know you guys track this too, where you have a ranked team going on the road as a underdog. And I think I've been tracking this 5-1 against the spread in those spots as the home team, the unranked team this season. You know, we saw Duke beat NC State a couple weeks ago. We saw Mississippi State beat Arizona State in a similar spot with the Sun Devils ranked. So this is a kind of a dangerous zone for the Cyclones. Obviously, it's a Big 12 road game. That's never easy to win away from home. But Matt Campbell and this team, to me, it's different. They can afford some injury issues in the secondary. I think they've built pretty good depth there on defense. It's a game that I think will come down to the wire, but it is worrisome when you lose a guy for the season, especially a veteran player.
Emory, Brendan Sorsby has been on a heater at quarterback for Cincinnati. Did not play very well, I thought, in the Nebraska game, but that was then. This is now. He's playing really, really good football in the last few weeks.
Yeah, the Nebraska game is hard for some to move off of what we saw last. And in a big game, a spotlight standalone moment where he just kind of threw the game away. But yeah, he's been playing really well since then. So has Cincinnati, which is why this line reflects that in terms of how close this game is. But I like Iowa State because at the end of the day, this is a football team I feel like that's not getting respect. They're a great open field tackling team. They got two good backs that they can run the football with. Rocco Beck is a fantastic quarterback that plays great situational football. So I can still trust Iowa State, you know, in this spot against a team like Cincinnati that seems to be surging. But Iowa State, to Brad's point, they have to meet this moment. And to your point, in terms of them continuing to have to win, because they're still getting disrespected in the polls. It's almost like the pollsters, we're talking about the AP poll, is not rewarding teams that consistently win good games or close games like Iowa State or Vanderbilt or Georgia Tech. Their name brand isn't big enough for them to catapult them into this top 12. So we'll see if that changes, if Iowa State is able to get this win, which I fully think they will.
Totals 54.5 in this game. Totals are 3-1. The over is 3-1 in Cincinnati games so far this season. Pay attention to that one on Saturday. UCLA and Penn State. Look, it's not going to be the greatest atmosphere in college football history, especially for a Penn State team that's coming from the whiteout last week against Oregon to, you know, maybe a 20% full Rose Bowl on Saturday against UCLA. But there's a lot of moving parts with UCLA right now. Obviously, Deshaun Foster's no longer the head coach, but UCLA parted ways this week with Tino Sunseri, their offensive coordinator. That means Penn State will be facing a new head coach, Tim Skipper, the interim. Offensive coordinator, Jerry Neuheisel, who's been on that staff for the better part of a decade, is now going to be the play calling offensive coordinator, as well as a new defensive coordinator as well, Kevin Cole. So you got a situation here where Penn State's walking into a place where it could be sleepy atmosphere. You worry, could they sleepwalk through this? Are there things that they may not be expecting from UCLA in this game? Look, Penn State is clearly the better team. Obviously, the spread reflects that. They're a 24.5-point favorite. UCLA, the second largest home spread as an underdog in 30 years for the Bruins. So we know what to expect in this game. But Brad, Penn State's got to get back on the right track for the rest of their season to get where they want to go after that loss to Oregon last weekend.
This was supposed to set up, Richard, for a nice Penn State getaway, cross-country flight for fans, go to LA a few days, and then watch the Rose Bowl, watch your team blow out UCLA. But then they stubbed their toe against Oregon. Now this is a must-win. You must look good to get back up inside that top 10 of the polls. Penn State's a team that I still feel pretty confident about. I think that they're going to, at worst, finish 10-2 this season. And if I'm UCLA, I'm just trying to get Nico Iamaleava to play a little bit more consistently. He's been really good in fourth quarters this season. First three quarters of games, the UCLA offense just has not produced enough moving the change, points, just a little bit of everything. Has had some giveaways. UCLA is a team that obviously they're hungry. One of the four winless teams with Sam Houston losing last night as well in college football, but this has Penn State blowout written all over it. This is a angry Nittany Lions team, especially coming off that in week 5.
Emory, Tony Rojas out for this, or out for significant time, I should say, with an undisclosed injury. So at the second level of Penn State's defense, they're going to have to figure something out in the inside linebacker spot. But UCLA is the opponent where you can try out a freshman. Dom DeLuca probably going to get some burn in this game, but you can try a freshman out. You can try some young guys out if you're up big enough in the second half.
Well, here's the thing about UCLA if in their slow starts. This would be the perfect week to try to rectify that because Penn State's offense is going to give you an opportunity to get some early stops. Their offense doesn't really get off to a great start. We've seen them struggle against opponents early in ball games like Nevada, like FIU, and watching that Villanova game, I mean, homeboy dropped like 3 picks against Penn State. And so if there's any chance for this offense to really kind of get into the fight and make it a game, it would be this game in this first quarter. So we'll see if that happens. But otherwise, over the course of a 4-quarter game, with all that talent that they have within the trenches and how they can run the football and how their offense seems to get it going in the second half, it could be a long, slow blowout for UCLA, or they kind of make this thing competitive if they can get off to an early start.
Penn State 0-4 against the spread this season, but Penn State as a 20-point road favorite since 2000, 8-1. Pay attention to that one again. It's a big number, 24.5 for Penn State to cover in this game, but it's against UCLA. We'll see how that ends up. When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to talk game of the week, Miami, Florida State. It's time to break down the game of the week here. Look, it's Brad Crawford's world, and we're all just living in it when we get to the Blitz picks later in the show. But Emory Hunt, my guy, he's got hitting the nail on the head when it comes to game of the week this season. 3-1 is his record. I'm just here for vibes. I'm just a good locker room guy, apparently. My 1-3 record in game of the week. Fellas, it's time to get back on the right side of the number. It's Miami. It's Florida State in Tallahassee this year. Florida State coming off the loss to Virginia last week, Friday, in a massive upset spot for the Cavs. Miami's been rolling this year. And to me, Emory, when I look at this Miami team, and we've talked about it, this Miami team is normal. This Miami team is boring. This Miami team is not giving you a ton of excitement. And that's a good thing. Last year, it was too exciting. Too many fumbles, too many turnovers, too many late game. You got the opponent coming back on you, or you're trying to make a play at the end of the game. This Miami team just controls football games, Emory, and they have been so good to me this season.
This is who this Miami team reminds me of. And when you're watching them play, they look a lot like those Georgia teams where you just knew the O-line and D-line would take control. Defense in and of itself would be dominant to where they overwhelmed the opponent, and you just got an okay play from the quarterback position to where you find yourself, is he really doing anything or is he not? But in this case, Carson Beck is doing his part. He's playing his 111. But when you look at the O-line and D-line of Miami, man, they are just dominating opponents. Therein lies the difference in this ball game, the consistency from Miami, which is something we really hadn't said about Miami since the early 2000s about consistency. But this team is consistent in how they approach the game, how they dominate a football game, how they win these ball games. And that level of consistency gives me a ton of confidence to take them to beat Florida State in this ball game. Carson Beck has done a solid job in playing the position, protecting the football, not going over the top. They really hadn't need him to be the golden arm quarterback yet, but he's been doing enough to where he's not being a liability. So all of that being said, man, Miami looks really good so far this season.
Yeah, Emory, you mentioned it. Obviously, much was made of Carson Beck's addition, but to me, not enough was made with what they have up front in the trenches. It's not just Ruben Bain, Akeem Metazador on the defensive side of the ball. It's the consistency of the offensive line. The only new offensive lineman, Brad, on that unit is the center. The other pieces have been there. That's a level of cohesion when you have five guys trying to play as one. And we watched him on this Georgia team, Brad. Carson Beck struggled last year with the Dogs because that offensive line was so much chop and change, injuries, all those kinds of things affecting it. Now, in a stable offensive architecture, Carson Beck looks pretty good because we're not putting everything on his shoulders. He's just being asked to sort of manage the game here.
Yeah, I got told back in May, Richard, and I've said this too publicly, that someone close to that program told me this is the best Miami offensive line they saw during the spring in more than a decade. And they have shown that through 4 games of the season. I also like what Miami, you alluded to it, has on the defensive line with Ruben Bain and some of the other guys. They are number one right now in the ACC in total defense. They're number one in opponent third down conversions, turnover margin. Those are all very key numbers to be an elite defense. And Miami across the board is beating others inside that league on that side of the football. So it's going to be tough sledding for Florida State Saturday night. I mean, Tommy Castellanos, on third down, he's kind of an average passer. And I think if Miami can get Florida State in some of those 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 situations where, you don't get an opportunity to give Gus Malzahn a chance at some misdirection on third and manageable, then that plays right into Miami's strengths.
Miami, largest road favorite versus a ranked team since 2005. The 4.5 point favorites against the Noles here in this game. For Florida State, in their games this season, the over has gone 4-0, including on Friday night, when I was quite frankly pretty disappointed with Florida State against that Virginia team because, for instance, you had a Virginia team without its best left tackle and without its best center in that game, and they walked Florida State down. I mean, they ran the ball down Florida State's throat in that game with a 2.5, three-headed monster at running back. Emory, that's a bad sign for me with how soft Florida State's front looked against the Cavs.
And when they had to go down and score as the game got tight, I'm talking about that last possession, the last quarter, it felt like they were just spamming the same pass play. Like, man, where's Deuce Robinson? Get him the football because we have no other pass plays to really, win versus the secondary. And shout out to the former Morgan State corner that transferred into Virginia, getting the game-saving play at the end of the game because, 6'4" corners don't grow on trees, and Morgan State got them one, and then he ends up transferring after his freshman year down to Virginia. But, man, Florida State's passing game was really one-dimensional. And if you kind of look at this from a schematic standpoint, if you're Miami, like, all right, cool, we'll just bracket him and force Castellanos to beat us with other targets, and we'll also send pressure from his throwing side to make it even worse for him to try to find consistency in the passing game. If they could just make those individual tackles in space versus those big, strong running backs that Florida State has, this could be a problem for the Seminoles in finding that consistency of moving the football. And outside of Thomas Castellanos, who's fantastic as an off-script guy that can create with his legs and really make you frustrated as a defensive coordinator, these are the moments where if he could play a little bit in structure and they could find some consistency with the other targets in the passing game, they could keep this one close to perhaps win this game outright. But, man, it's tough to believe that after what we've seen so far this season from Florida State.
Here's my thing with Florida State. I think the more you get away from that week 1 game against Bama, the more you have to kind of get rid of the assumptions that you had coming out of that game, because both of the teams in that game looked significantly different now that you're a few weeks from it. Bama looks like their offensive inefficiency and lack of cohesion is coming back together. Ty Simpson's playing really good football. Florida State, quite frankly, looks like they kind of got away with it that day with a game plan that Alabama simply just wasn't expecting in a week 1 spot, which happens. Ask LSU and Clemson about their week 1 result and what we think about that game moving forward. How do you kind of go back and evaluate both Alabama and Florida State, Brad, after that game, the more we get away from it?
Yeah, I think Florida State had a bunch of manageable third downs in that game. And like I mentioned, if you can get Tommy Castellanos throwing it 25 plus times a game, you're going to feel pretty good as the opposing defensive coordinator because he's just not a guy who's going to stand back there and chop and dice you up through the secondary, picking on guys with back shoulder throws and that sort of thing, moving the chains with his arm. Good quarterback, good dual threat player, but his strength is moving outside of the pocket and on the ground. And getting to Bama, man, Ty Simpson is playing at a Heisman-like level. He's the only SEC quarterback, I think, right now, starting QB without an interception. And Bama throws it a lot because they still have not managed that, power run game we saw 5 to 6 years ago. So Florida State and Alabama, I still think they're two good teams, probably 9, 10 win teams. But like you've said, the last 3 weeks, they look a little bit different schematically and even execution wise, because last week at Virginia, Florida State was a team that defensively had superb talent based on the other roster, and it just didn't show up, giving up 46 points.
Emory, with Florida State's running game, what does it mean for them to have Tommy Castellanos as a mobile threat? We've talked about him a lot in this segment. That's something to their credit Miami hasn't really seen this season. They're going to get something a little bit different with Gus Malzahn at the controls and Tommy Castellanos running the rock.
And here's why it's a unique challenge for them, because normally when you see the mobile quarterback, they're paired with an explosive back so they can hit the home run, because you're so worried about the quarterback getting outside and keeping the football. But what Florida State has is two power backs. So not only do you have to worry about Castellanos getting outside, but you better be sure you tackle these dudes that also has the football in terms of the tailbacks, because man, these dudes run with pad level, they run with power. They're a chore to bring down. And on top of that, after you're tired from tackling these, check their birth certificate type running backs, because they don't seem like they're of age to be in college with how strong they are. They got grown man strength. Castellano still has, baby speed where he gets outside and now you got to chase him around. So there's a lot of problems with their run game in terms of trying to defend them because of how they are built, how they're constructed. So this is going to be a chore for Miami, because Castellanos will run and those running backs will break the first tackle. You have to make sure it's great team defense if you want to get both of these guys on the ground.
All right, fellas, let's pick it. It's the big one. Miami on the road at Florida State in Tallahassee. I'll go first. Give me Miami -4.5. I mean, you could take this spread up to double digits, to be honest with you. I think Miami controls the line of scrimmage. They control the game, and they win pretty comfortably in the end. Brad, how do you see it?
I like Miami -4.5 as well. Anything under a touchdown, I'm comfortable with this being one of my week 6 locks. Miami's a team defensively that they're number one in the ACC for a reason. I know Florida State scoring points at will. A lot of them points, 77 of which were against East Texas A&M. Let's see how Florida State does against an elite defense with very good players within that front seven.
I'm going to lay the points with Miami. And earlier in the week, because I have to say this because we know people get in the comments like, "Oh, you was on earlier in the week. You says you take Florida State." Yeah, because it was 6.5, but now it's 4.5. It makes much more sense. So I'm gonna lay these 4.5 points with Miami, so you can get about my mentions, because I told you why I changed the pick. It's all about the numbers, and this is a great one for the Hurricanes.
What is it, Emory? At Football Game Plan on all social media. Get up in the mentions.
At CFB College Football, or at NFL on CBS. All those are mine. So get at me.
We're going to get at you when we come back for the break on the CBS College Football Pick Show. It's the Blitz. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Picks Show. We got Blitz picks, and again, Brad Crawford rolling this season, 58% against the spread, 59%. Let me round a little bit to help my guy out, to make my guy look better. 17-12 when it comes to the Blitz. Emory and me, we're trying to figure it out. We're working with our coordinators here to figure out the right schemes to put in place to get the job done through 5 weeks. All right, guys, let's get it rolling here on the Blitz. I will start us off. Vanderbilt plus 10.5 against Alabama. I am not confident that Alabama knows how to defend a mobile quarterback. Diego Pavia is also not just a mobile quarterback, by the way, because quite frankly, he's been playing pretty well this season as a drop back passer. Vanderbilt's got threats. They've got weapons besides just Eli Stowers, who's a tremendous tight end, probably a first-round pick at tight end. That Vanderbilt offense is funky. It's weird to defend. You got a lot of wide receivers that are out there giving you switch releases and changing looks after the snap. You got to be ready for it if you're Alabama. I'm not saying Alabama's going to take Vandy lightly, because we saw what happened last year, but I do love Vanderbilt in this spot, because if they were any other SEC team and you've seen what they've done against their schedule, you would say, oh, that looks pretty good to me. So I'm taking Vandy plus 10.5, Brad.
I'm going to start my card with Texas -4.5 at the Swamp against Florida. One of my personal betting rules this season is to continue to fade bad teams. And until Florida shows me it can score offensively and convert third down, I'm gonna have to go to the road team here. Arch Manning, this is a huge spot for him. He's had a week to prepare. If he fails to perform here, Texas is out of the playoff picture, out of the SEC race, and I do think the bust label will come into the picture all over social media later this weekend. So big spot for Arch Manning. I think anything under a touchdown, you're safe taking the Longhorns to cover at Florida.
Guys, you know I'm a college football historian. Bama played Vanderbilt for the first time in 1903. So Harriet Tubman passed away in 1913. That means she got to see three of these games before she passed away, right? So she saw three Vanderbilt victories in 1903, 1906, 1908, right? But I'm taking you there to bring you here. This is a game that Alabama had circled the entire offseason. You saw what happened when they changed the ingredients to the Coca-Cola and named it New Coke. You saw what just happened when people thought Cracker Barrel was changing the whole label. Y'all don't know what happened when Chili's changed the white chocolate molten cake. I called Chili like, yo, why would y'all change the best dessert y'all had on this menu? They are not losing this ball game to Vanderbilt. In fact, they're going to cover this game against Vanderbilt. So lay these 10.5 points with Alabama. If you thought people were mad with New Coke and all those other things that I mentioned, boy, they lose 2 years in a row to Bama. Whew. No, that's not going to happen. They will cover. If they don't win another game this season or cover another game this season, they will cover this one against Vanderbilt.
White chocolate mocha cake for everybody, molten lava cake, whatever it is, for everybody
Bruh.
with the picks that we're giving out here on the Blitz. Cal and Duke, give me under 55.5 in that game. JKS, Jaron Kiavi Sangapolatelli, tremendous quarterback. One of a guy that really is just a next level talent at quarterback. However, what he's going up against in this game is Manny Diaz and a Duke defense that will be able to limit what he can do. He had some heroics last week against Boston College. They won the game at the buzzer. Did Cal going east, but in this game against the Blue Devils, I think Manny Diaz and that defense are going to have a little something, something for one of the most talented quarterbacks in college football as a young player.
And we're going to stay in the ACC here for me. I'm going Clemson team total over 30.5 points in Chapel Hill against Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels. At some point, fellas, Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik has to look like the Cade Klubnik of last season, right? 36 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. He ain't been the same guy through the first month of the season. I think that changes inside Kenan Stadium. Clemson finally gets it together. It's a get-right game for Dabo Swinney of sorts. I know this team is not going to win the ACC, but they still have a chance to finish strong, make a decent bowl game. I think the offense Saturday afternoon makes a statement. I am going Clemson team total over 30.5 points. I've been tracking this too. Team total bets are 3-1 this season. I'm starting to like these more. So Clemson over 30.5 points against the Tar Heels.
Now, I do have a fantastic historical reference for the University of Virginia, but like the esteemed American poet Rakim from the critically acclaimed American film Juice, I know the ledge. So I will keep it to football here and talk about Virginia plus 6.5 against Louisville. This was unique to me because normally in a normal, era of television and media, Virginia would have gotten talked about all week long. We'd have sent, reporters down to Charlottesville to interview, this player, that player, found some sob story about some guy's pet or whatnot. And they would have built up the hype and they would have been setting up for a letdown against Louisville. But in typical this era fashion, no one talked about them after they stormed the field. It was like, all right, we moved on to the next big story. So they go in locked in for this game against Louisville. They will avoid the letdown. And we know their offense now has the confidence that they can score on anybody. Take them plus the 6.5 points.
Speaking of 6.5 points, I'm taking Kansas State plus 6.5 points against Baylor. I think a lot of people have forgotten about this Kansas State team. And look, I'm not going to hold that against you, right? You start the season 1-3, and your only win was a one possession win over an FCS opponent, and not even one of the good ones. I get it. But I think this Kansas State team coming off of the bye, getting Dylan Edwards back, has looked better. Quite frankly, they smoked UCF last week. Really didn't let them off the mat. So I think Kansas State's people in the building there feel like they're going to get on the right track here coming down the course of the season. But at the end of the day, Baylor's defense, I don't think stopped Kansas State in that two-headed running game with Dylan Edwards and Avery Johnson. Now, if this becomes a track meet, I'm not so sure about Kansas State, but if Kansas State can control the game, they can cover the spread, maybe even win outright, Brad.
Yeah, I like Washington -6.5 at Maryland for my next pick. Maryland is one of 20 unbeaten teams right now entering week 6. That unbeaten streak to start the year for Mike Locksley will end. Look, I've been really impressed with Malik Washington, freshman quarterback there for the Terps, but this Washington team is better. And maybe the Huskies are undervalued a bit after getting held out of the end zone last week against a very, very talented Ohio State defense. But this Maryland unit on that side of the ball, it's not comparable in terms of talent. I think Washington bounces back and covers on the road to hand Maryland its first loss.
A sneaky game I feel like is on the schedule this week is Michigan State taking on Nebraska. I like Michigan State plus 11.5. Big fan of Aiden Childs and how he's played this season. Consistent ball. He's not as high variance as he was last year. Defensively, we've seen him lock in a little bit more. So I like the trajectory in which they're headed. And this is a perfect spot for them to keep this one very close to where they have an outside chance of winning the ball game. So give me the Spartans plus 11.5 against Nebraska.
Oh, those Nebraska tackles better come to play with what Michigan State's got going, Emory. I like that pick, by the way. Notre Dame -20.5 versus Boise State. I think 5 years ago, if you gave me this matchup, you would say it's one of the juiciest matchups in college football, maybe even last year. But I just think Boise has not been at the races this year. I think one of the most underrated things about Marcus Freeman's Notre Dame era is that they get better as the season goes on. It doesn't matter who's playing for them. I mean, look at last season with all the injuries that they have. Yeah, if you left them for dead because of what happened earlier in the season for Notre Dame, I get it. But I think you got to evaluate what Notre Dame is actually doing right now. They have flipped their identity. Offense is really good. Defense still needs to come along a little bit. Missing Howard Cross, missing Riley Mills, missing Xavier Watts from last year's team. But at the end of the day, I think the Irish are getting better. I think they smoke Boise State in this game and cover 20.5.
Bold pick for me there, Richard. Let's see. I like Iowa State plus 1.5 at Cincinnati. I'm fading my model, fading my numbers, fading the trends here. I'm going with the ranked team underdog on the road. I faded Iowa State a couple weeks ago against Arizona, and that was a big mistake. Iowa State blew Arizona out in that game. I'm trying to get some redemption back here, going with Matt Campbell's team. I like the Cyclones to stay unbeaten and really challenge Texas Tech later on in the year in the Big 12 race.
I'm taking them straight up on the money line, Brad. I like them to win this ball game. I actually like how Iowa State has played this season, how their schedule had set up. I mean, you start overseas, you get that win against your conference opponent in Kansas State, you come back, no bye week, and you play a very good South Dakota team and blow the doors off them. Then, for whatever reason, you travel to Jonesboro, Arkansas, and took care of business against Arkansas State. So they've been battle tested, they've been challenged. They know how to win these high leverage games, and I think they'll win this one as well.
All righty. I'm going to give you another big number here, but I'm going to take the underdog against this big number, Charlotte, plus 27.5 against USF. Look, I understand USF is an early season darling, but one of the things that I haven't seen for USF is the ability to control the game. They're really good at scoring. Byron Brown's a great talent, but I think they struggle with a consistency aspect from a down-to-down basis. I think because of that, even if they're up late, big, Charlotte can battle back and Charlotte can cover the massive number 27.5 in this game. It's a big spot for Charlotte. And look, I understand that USF needs the style points to continue to impress as we get closer to the college football playoff rankings coming out, but I like the 49ers in this game to cover the spread.
I'm going to go heavy underdog here too. This was almost my upset of the week, and I almost took a money line. Purdue plus 9.5. You might be able to get 10.5 by the time this game comes out. But they are playing at home, coming off the open date, signature win opportunity here. Illinois feeling themselves a little bit after beating USC, coming back to win that game at the Horn on that walk-off kick. This just feels like that weird spot in week 6 where if you're going to play a side in this game, it has to be Purdue. Purdue is pretty good at home, too, in these heavy underdog roles. I like the points from the Boilermakers.
Texas Tech got that big cigar money, laid the 11.5 with the Red Raiders. They are not playing. They are showing you who has the biggest bag. I remember we were talking about last year when SMU and Miami were now in conference. That's the bag bowl, right? You got, South Florida money and you got Texas money. Well, we're showing you now what Texas money looks like in the form of Texas Tech. Lay the 11.5 points. They'll crush Houston.
Final pick of the Blitz for me, Michigan versus Wisconsin. I'm going to take over 43.5. Quite frankly, I think Michigan may be able to hit this number by themselves because I just don't like what Wisconsin has on defense. Wisconsin sort of betting on itself and its culture of the program, and it's just not working for me. I think Michigan, they're transitioning to not just plucky, not just interesting, not just a maybe team with Bryce Underwood. I think Michigan's a bona fide good football team and is going to be in the mix here for the Big Ten championship as we get into the stretch run. I think they dominate Wisconsin in this game.
Final blitz pick for me, I'm going Vanderbilt plus 10.5 at Alabama. Alabama's 14th in the SEC right now against the run. And Vandy does that extremely well. I think number two right now in that league behind Missouri and Ahmad Hardy. You see there, Vanderbilt under Clark Lee, they have done some damage as a betting underdog, and they've won several of these games outright. We know this Vanderbilt team is not going to be intimidated whatsoever by a road environment. They've already destroyed Virginia Tech, beat South Carolina 31-7 under the lights of Williams-Brice. I like Vanderbilt not to win the game, but I do like Diego Pavia in 10.5 points.
I may have to go to the library and look on microfiche to see how those first three games of this Bama Vanderbilt game played out because I'm fascinated now by that historical reference I gave you guys early. But I will wrap up my blitz picks with Washington laying the 6.5. Defense travels, run games travels. I love the freshman quarterback Malik Washington. I called this game as a high school sophomore, said he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country by the time he's going to be a senior. And it looks to be true that he's out there starring for Maryland, but this is a tough matchup. I think Washington won't let one loss become two. They'll take care of business against the Terps.
All righty, guys. Love the Blitz picks. But as always, every dog has its day. And on Friday, we bring you Underdog picks on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Fellas, real quick, underdog plays of the day. I'm going to start us off. Maryland plus 197 against Washington. Give me the Terps. I love what this band of freshmen has been able to do for Mike Locksley and Maryland. To be frank, also, I think Washington's a little overrated based on a soft schedule earlier in this season. We saw them really struggle against Ohio State. And look, I understand that Maryland's defense is not Ohio State's defense, but Maryland does have good freshman edges that I really like. Give me the Terps in this game outright, Brad.
Yeah, we don't have the graphic up, man, but I'm 4-1 on the upset plays. So I feel like I am nailing these picks this season. And I feel good about this week too. Give me Virginia and Chandler Morris to take out Louisville. I think Emory, that's one of his plays too. Virginia plus 6.5. I like the Cavs on the money line here. No disrespect to Brom's team, but they should have lost last week at Pitt. They got down big in that game, Louisville did. And I know it's dangerous going with the ranked team in this scenario, something we kind of mentioned previously, but this Virginia team feels different. You see right there the numbers. Tony Elliott has this program humming right now. I think that they will build off that win over the Seminoles, keep riding that momentum, take another ACC game. Give me Virginia on the road with the points and money line to beat Louisville.
Give me the maroon game here between Mississippi State and also Texas A&M. Mississippi State has been flirting with this upset. Last week, they should have beat Tennessee, I thought. This week, I feel like they take care of business and knock off Texas A&M. I love how the offense is doing a great job, but defensively, they're much better this season. And I feel like Texas A&M may be a little bit one-dimensional in terms of how they win games. I think if you could stop their run game and force Marcel Reed to make plays consistently throwing the football and their passing game to beat you, therein lies the way they could win, and I think they will at plus 520. Give me Mississippi State.
To be honest with you, Emory, I liked that Mississippi State pick a lot. I really thought about taking that pick myself. It was just a little bit too much of that plus 520 for me to take it. And I love the Virginia pick too. Virginia and Louisville, that's a dark horse game in the ACC. Both of those teams have some designs on maybe being a party crasher in the conference. So it's an interesting pick from Brad as well. We're going to go to break. real quick when we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, model plays and Friday parlays. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Picks Show. Real quick, enough from us. Let's go to the computers for the model play of the week. A little bit of model talk for you. The model's 3-2 so far this season. Iowa State plus 1.5 against Cincinnati is the pick. 77% of the model's simulations tell you the Cyclones will pull it out plus 1.5. To be honest with you guys, I kind of like that play on the money line as well, but nobody asked me. We're just asking the machine here. And the pick, there you have it from our sports line model. Now on to parlays for your Friday to get you out of here. I will kick us off. Georgia State, James Madison's my first leg over 53.5. I think there's a lot of explosive capability with James Madison's offense and Alonzo Burnett at the controls. I think Georgia State does not have a great defense and is going to be chasing in this game with Big Ponchatoula, TJ Finley, throwing the rock to at least Ted Hurst. I don't know about anybody else, but Ted Hurst can go at wide receiver. Give me that, the over. Give me Penn State, UCLA under 50.5. I just don't think UCLA is going to pull its weight in this total matchup. I don't really think they're going to score at all in this game, especially with a new offensive coordinator calling the plays here and Penn State's great defense. And then Miami minus 4.5. We talked about it in our big game segment. I think the Canes roll in that game. That's my 3-leg parlay plus 634. I'm just trying to get like Brad Crawford here, trying to cash up one parlay this season here moving forward.
And I'm going for number 4 in 6 weeks, man. I'm trying to set a new record here. I like Kansas minus 4.5 at UCF as the first of a 3-legger. Jayhawks here, Jalen Daniels, big spot. I don't think UCF's as good as it looked against the Tar Heels. That's a bad team under Bill Belichick. I think Kansas wins this road game handily inside the bounce house in the 407. Cal plus 2.5 against Duke, hosting the Blue Devils. Duke's playing a little better. Blew out Syracuse, beat NC State 2 weeks ago. Pretty good in ACC play, but that cross-country trip to Cal, Richard mentioned quarterback for Cal playing well right now. I ain't even going to try to mention his name. He can do that for me. And then the 3rd leg, Washington, minus 6.5 at Maryland. Terps go down, first loss of the season. Huskies are undervalued because of how they looked last week against Ohio State. Did not get in the end zone there. So Kansas minus 4.5, Cal plus 2.5. And Washington minus 6.5. That's plus 686. I like those 3 games as my week 6 parlay.
Man, let me put my hoodie on so that way you know I ain't playing with this parlay. Because I see when you had the hoodie on, things about
Get your ski mask on. There you go.
Exactly. It working. Hip hop is going to work in this parlay because, oh, by the way, Vanderbilt beat Alabama 142-0 in those 3 games. I found out. That's crazy. So here's the parlay. We got a 5-leg FCS parlay because that's where we're going to strike this value. Lehigh money line over Yale. I like them and how they're playing. I also like South Dakota State laying the 14.5 points versus Youngstown State. First big test for the Penguins, and it's a big one. Julius Loveridge, the running back, should have a field day. Tarleton State minus 22.5. One of the best teams in the FCS, one of the best stories. They're like an FBS team playing FCS ball. I also will lay the 17.5 with Harvard as they take on Holy Cross. Harvard has an FCS prospect at quarterback, Jaden Craig, tremendous dual threat. Keep an eye on him. Arkansas Pine Bluff plus 5.5 against Texas Southern. Tony Hall, the offensive coordinator, should be a head football coach. He has a great quarterback in Christian Peters. Take them plus the 5.5. And when I sting this parlay, I'm driving everywhere in the steamboat. So if you ain't got nowhere for me to park my steamboat, don't even ask me to come. And by the way, you call me catfish when I hit this. So this is like what, plus 18 something? We gonna rock out. And don't call me nothing but the man when I knock this out.
Emory Hunt put the hoodie on and he's dropping bars. For Emory Hunt, Brad Crawford, I'm Richard Johnson. This has been the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. We'll see you next week.